Trust and transparency. Faster sales, more deals, real-time accurate data. Build or grow your MLS and let Universal Consulting Opportunities, a proud subsidiary of Stellar MLS, help you. Need expert advice on setting up an MLS in your region? We're the experts you need. Wondering how to gain buy-in from real estate professionals and consumers? We'll work with you on your go-to-market strategy. With Universal Consulting Opportunities, you gain a trusted partner dedicated to your success. Let us pave the way for your future growth and excellence. We specialize in meeting your unique needs wherever you are in your MLS journey. We're Universal Consulting Opportunities, and we're for you.
Okay, welcome back. I hope that everybody enjoyed lunch, and I hope that you're also ready for some more thought-provoking conversation. Good afternoon. My name is Shane Fairley. I'm the COO for Stellar MLS as well as for UCO. I'd like to say that we are very honored in order to be one of the sponsors here. I'd also like to say thank you to all the sponsors that helped make this event happen. I'd also like to give a special shout out to a couple of people. Ali from Realtina, as well as Seppi, as well as Sam from RESO, as well as Joe from ModernTech. I got to tell you, we were here last year, and just to see the progression from last year to this year, to hear that you guys have doubled in size, I think that that's amazing. And so, if we could just get a quick round of applause for the planning committee and everybody, I think that it's been an amazing job, just to see the progress. So. I've been around the industry for about almost 20 years now. However, I'm excited as I have ever been in order to see what the future holds on the international front. I just think that the opportunities that are there in front of you they're there for the grasping, and I'm excited to see what you guys do with the next couple of years. So, like I said, my name's Shane. I'm the COO for Stellar MLS. We're the third largest MLS in the country. We have about 85,000 customers. We also have always been a flag bearer, somebody who's carried that RESO message forward. We believe that standards are the way forward, and if you start with the standards and you build everything on top of it, then I think that you're starting off on a great foot. Take some of the lessons that we've learned in the North American concept and apply it here, and I think that you'll be on your way. And so just like we've been a champion for RESO, one of the things that we also wanted to do is to further our commitment to the industry was we formed the Universal Consulting Opportunities. And so we offer areas of expertise for market entry, for MLS databases, for data sharing, as well as cross-border transactions, excuse me. Our expertise is built on a collaborative 100 years overall in our leadership team, on the Stellar side, but then we've also got about 40 years combined experience working with international organizations. We have a team, some of which are fluent in a couple of different languages, and we'd really like to talk to you. One of the things that we've done over the past year since Paris is we've worked with a couple of different organizations, such as FIOPSI, as well as Seppi. And together in a partnership with Igluu, as well as Seppi, we put together an educational series for Seppi members to try to educate them more on the benefits of MLS, the benefits of sharing, the benefits of standards, what's the difference between portals versus an MLS, and I look forward to working with both companies for continued opportunities in the future. Like I said, we've also been the flag bearer for RESO and standards. We also want to be a champion for you. So we've also had a lot of conversations since Paris last year. And so we do understand that there are a lot of differences. Each market's different. We heard earlier today that there's over 50 countries in Europe. I would say over the course of the conversations that we've had over the last year, none of them have been the same. So we absolutely understand that each market's different. We want to talk to you, though. We'd love to come in, understand your culture, understand what it is that you're trying to do, no matter if you're just starting out or if you're looking to kind of hone operations that you already have in place. Like Joe was saying earlier, we do have a booth in the back. Please drop your business card in the bucket. We are going to have a drawing tomorrow, and I look forward to seeing who the big winner is there. I'm sorry? It's not a Ferrari. It's not that big. So maybe after the next couple of years, though, I said that this has been progressing. You know, we'll see if we can get there, Carlos. But again, thank you to all the sponsors who've helped make this event possible. I also think that this is a great segue for our next panel. The next panel is going to be on the challenges as well as the opportunities for creating MLSs globally. And so I'd like to welcome the moderator for this next panel. She is the CEO of MRED. She's also the chair, the longstanding chair of RISO, and I get to serve on the board with her. And so Rebecca Jensen, please welcome to the stage.
Thank you so much, and welcome back from lunch. As Shane said, I am Rebecca Jensen. I'm the CEO of Midwest Real Estate Data, also known as MRED. And MRED is a regional MLS that is not just covering the greater Chicago area, but we spill over into neighboring states of Illinois, and we are the majority of Illinois. We have about 47,000 subscribers, give or take, depending on the marketplace. And so while it's a pleasure to be an MLS CEO, I'm also grateful to serve as the chair of RISO, the Real Estate Standards Organization. And RISO has long been a passion of mine. I've been in the MLS industry since 1998, when there were definitely dial-up modems and people were trying to shift from the paper real estate books to an online environment. And at the time, I was the CEO of an MLS in Utah where we built most of our technology in-house. And I remember working with the very robust RETS standard that was created by the National Association of Realtors around that same time. And it was a conference that I went to at the National Association of Realtors building in Chicago. And there were probably at that time maybe less than 100, maybe 60 to 70 people that were trying to create the RETS standard at the time. And a bunch of MLSs got together and said, hey, it's too important to have standards in real estate to leave it up to just one organization. And so it was around that time, and this was probably 2010, that a bunch of MLSs said, hey, we are going to help the National Association of Realtors create updated standards. And so we took the great work that was done with RETS, and we said we also need to create a data dictionary, because it's important to transfer data from one server to another, certainly, and RETS does that very well. But we also need to have a way to describe that data. And so we created the first data dictionary with maybe 100 fields. It was bedrooms and bathrooms and how many cars can you park in your garage, very basic fields at the time. And over the years, we were able to innovate and create a very robust data dictionary, and then also help create the RISO API and many other standards. And so it's been a labor of love for many people, and that is part of what we would like to discuss with you on our next panel. So I'd like to invite my panelists up, please, and we can continue the discussion. Thank you very much, and we'll just go down the line, and would you please introduce yourself to the audience and tell them a little bit about where you're from, the company that you represent. Martin?
Sure, so good afternoon. So my name is Martin Mucha, and I'm the CEO of Igluu, and we are a Czech-based company which is focusing on digitization of the real estate processes, including MLS, core systems, and bank assurance services.
Great, thank you.
Hi, my name is Anthony Deketelaere. I know it's a hard name to pronounce. I'm from Belgium. I'm the sole founder of YESMLS. YESMLS is a MLS system with the end in mind, and that's a global cooperation. So we already tackled a lot of systems that needed to be taken care of, and of course, RESO is one of them.
Great, thanks.
Hi, I'm Scott Little. I'm with CoreLogic. Earlier in my career, I have run business divisions in mortgage, in insurance, and location intelligence. And now I've moved over to the real estate space, and one of the responsibilities that I have is growing our international business. And so many of you know Matrix, which is our MLS software platform that has over 1 million agents in the United States. And now Matrix is deployed in 20 countries around the world in various languages.
Wonderful. Great.
I'm Elbatrawy, or Ahmed Elbatrawy. I'm the founder of Arab MLS. We are the exclusive right for the Matrix in the Middle East, and we have today, but they don't have the logo or the flag for the UAE, but we have Dubai MLS, and we have Egypt MLS. We just launched Dubai MLS today and Egypt MLS.
Congratulations. Oh. And Ahmed, well, let's start with you, since you just launched an MLS, right? So it's obviously fresh on your mind about what the challenges might be, but also obviously the opportunities. So can you speak a little bit about what that's like?
You know, building an MLS was not an easy task, which is MLS, as people knows about it, they think it's a plug and play. It's a PlayStation, you're gonna have it, you're gonna plug it into the wall, then you're gonna have an MLS working. MLS is, the first thing is it's an engine, it's a component, and this engine, you need a car around the engine. So there is a lot of requirements around the MLS. I've been doing this for the last 3 years with CoreLogic. We successfully built an MLS in Egypt, and it's a governmental MLS, and you know, I'm so proud to say that I have the first .gov domain in the world for an MLS, which is, we have this in Egypt, we work with the government. In Dubai, we work, we are endorsed by the Dubai Land Department, and we are trying to take our way step by step. Just building an MLS is not, it's not that easy as you think, as long as you understand the business and you have a powerful partner like CoreLogic, you know, and we're very lucky to have the Matrix, which is the platform that almost run the whole United States of America. You know, most of the associations and MLSs in America.
Great. And
Yeah,
so CoreLogic, I can
probably add to that a little bit. You know, every time that we get a new engagement with an MLS, it's a learning experience. Moving to the Middle East, that is a whole nother level that we took things to. We did a lot of things different. We set up an entirely different group outside of the normal group just to focus on the international. We had attorneys in the area understand the market. We hired a senior project manager on the ground that could work with Ahmed's company in Dubai on a day-to-day basis. And I mean, there's challenges, the time difference, definitely the language, you know, translating everything in Matrix to Arabic and making it work with all the different functionality. But you know, we've had a working group, probably 15 to 20 people on our side and hundreds of people on your side.
425.
To get to the point we are. So we're very confident in that. We feel that it's going to be successful. You know, CoreLogic is in a lot of different businesses in mortgage and insurance. And so from an infrastructure standpoint, and you know, one thing we haven't talked a lot about the conference is we want all the data in a database and we want it clean, but the security of that data is also very important. In the U.S., you know, there have been a couple incidents over the last year where The data's been hacked and held hostage, and so, you know, we spend probably tens of millions of dollars on security each year, and that's something that we brought to Ahmed's group just so that he doesn't need to worry about that. But it has been a long journey to get to the point we are, and so we're very excited to see what Ahmed can do now going forward.
Great. Anthony, what do you think, the challenges and opportunities?
Well, a lot of challenges, I can tell you that, because I started in real estate in 1999. Prince made a song about it. And then in 2007, I went to a convention in the States, and I got to know MLS. Well, I actually didn't know it, so it was like amazing to me, because in Belgium and in big parts of Europe, when you start an agency, it's like starting a cafe without beer. Why beer? Belgium has good beers. So before you can start selling, you need to get your listings. And in the States, it's different. You start in real estate, you plug into the MLS, you have thousands of listings. So I thought that was really amazing to have that system. And so in 2007, I started researching the MLS, and I must say, one of the mentors in that space, without him knowing, is Sol Klein, because I learned a lot from his blog posts and stuff like that. So I really got into the details of what an MLS is. And as Sol just posted, what if we could reinvent the MLS knowing what we know now and using the technologies that we have now? And that's exactly what a venture that I started in 2007. And then it was the REDS standards. So we kind of built on that. And it gradually went further and further. A lot of iterations, a lot of lines of code, in total 2 million lines of code that we created. And the big difference between our MLS and other MLSs is that we are agent-centric. So it's not that you connect to the MLS and you have everything. It's like Facebook, you connect to it, you make your friends, and then you start sharing your listings. So RESO is a very good system to kind of standardize things. I'm a bootstrapped company, so everything comes out of my pockets. I'm still an agent, broker, so I earn my money and invest it directly into YESMLS. So we are also planning on going to the new standard of RESO with time and money.
Great, thank you. Martin.
I think for us, we brought the concept from the US and Canada. I've been working a lot with Carlos Gras sitting here, with Realm and Amplify. We're kind of thinking, how do we bring this technology but optimize this for Europe, which is at the end completely different market. And at that point, we were discussing also the standards. And although things were running on REDS, we said the future is RESO, and we should do a RESO. And I spoke back then with Sam, and we went on it. So we are today running on RESO in the Czech Republic. It was challenging because everybody in Czech Republic, there are different technology providers, and they all have in-house homemade standards, which basically is not very good. You can't do much with it. And everything in the Czech Republic and in Europe generally runs around the real estate portals, because you just think about life cycle of the listing on the portal. So we basically had to build a lot around it and do a lot of education. And people had to understand that the MLS, it's not a real estate portal. It's so much more than that. We then work with the Real Estate Association in the Czech Republic, with Honza Borůvka from ARKA, to create actually an MLS rules, how people should work together. And it took us 18 months to actually take and create a model that will be, first of all, also fully compliant, the compliance, all the legal part, the KYC, the AML, the GDPR, and all the other things you can imagine, and the antitrust and all the other things. So we went through all of that to basically creating it. But in the same time, we were thinking, what is the future, of this? Like, where are we going with that? And for us, we are also partly owned by the CSOB group, which is a part of the KBC group, which is a large Belgian bank. We said, okay, how can we further bring the real estate and the finance together, because it's a very important component for people buying and renting homes, and how can we fully integrate the services? So last year when I was here, I spoke about digitization of mortgages and being part of the transaction, And this is actually what we are launching now this fall. We have created a fully digital mortgage process, which is part of the system. The broker can invite the customer. They can, through the digital identity that Czech Republic has, connect and get approved, pre-approved for a mortgage within 10 minutes, and directly throughout the bank, and it's all based on the data. The data is very powerful. We can also appraise each of the property from distance for apartments and single-family homes in some cities. So we are making it really very efficient and very also helpful for the brokers. Whereas the brokers in Europe, especially in the Czech Republic, are not used to work with the buyers. They solely represent sellers, and are not really proper buyer services. So we are currently discussing, what is the future? How can we bring these services and kind of, create sort of nice sort of packages for the consumer, so they understand that the buyer, it's not just I find on the portal and I live. It stays like process between that.
Right. So it's more of an ecosystem, it sounds like.
It's becoming sort of, we are kind of thinking about the multiple different backends we are connecting, if it's the appraisal services, if there are the mortgage services, the MLS data and other parts, but everything is happening seamlessly on the single front end. Right. So the consumer does need to leave anywhere.
So they all work together, the different components, which I know that is one of the things that RESO really focuses on is interoperability. In fact, they have a work group on interoperability, just meaning the individual pieces will work with each other, so that whether it's in one seamless system or a bunch of vendors that want to plug into each other, that's definitely the vision of RESO. So I wonder if you all could comment individually on that RESO ecosystem and the interoperability. How do you see that maybe going forward? What could RESO do to support that? Ahmed?
I think it's about time for marketplaces to use the same language, and I see RESO is doing a great job for that. I was just talking to Sam about it, and I asked him, I would love to be part of RESO. We're part of RESO, but I would love to see, how we can use RESO more to advance our business, to make our business better, as we have marketplace today at the Middle East, one of the largest or the only marketplace at the Middle East that run by MLS. He gave me a great answer. He said, you work with CoreLogic, and CoreLogic is automatically with RESO. So you don't have to do anything. You're already working with CoreLogic. So that's a big plus for us, having a CoreLogic being part of RESO. So it's part of the game.
And what I would say is CoreLogic's always been a big supporter of RESO, and will continue to be. And it's interesting because when we started working with Ahmed, and like everybody knows, the data is different everywhere, right? Everywhere you go. And so, we had a long conversation up front that said, we're going to follow RESO standards, but understand that the data is not where it needs to be. So we're going to get your system set up, but we're going to always be going in the direction of RESO and where RESO is moving. And to be honest with you, there will be a time where Ahmed wants to share data and have other people come into his system, and he goes into other systems, and that framework will allow us to do that a lot easier when we get to that point. We've had a lot of work to do before that, but we have that in our mind, and as part of our team, that's one of the objectives that we're moving towards as we grow the platform.
Great. Anthony?
I think a big issue is the country-specific fields, because like RESO is based on the American system. I'll give you a very bizarre example. Let's say in Dubai they have green and blue grass. It's not already in RESO. So the system that we build is we can automatically add a new field to the MLS and activate it just in that region or even in that country. So I think that's something that RESO can help us with in creating that system that we can say, okay, in this region, in that country, that's a field that needs to be added, and it only gets loaded when you are effectively in that area.
Great, thank you. Martin, what do you think? How can RESO support a growing ecosystem of products?
You know, for me, it's really all about the efficiency, because you have a standard. It's like, you know, it's like sort of like a plug, you know, for the phone. I just come, I plug in, I charge my phone, I'm pretty much done. If you don't have it, then, you know, it's very difficult to integrate with anything. It gets expensive, time-consuming, so it's not very efficient way to do anything. So I'll give you an example. For example, Ali has a great company with different real estate websites. It's a RESO web API. We can take it, plug it in, and use it. And it's good, you know, for the market to have one standard, which you can obviously optimize and localize. So that's what we have done in the Czech Republic. We run on the RESO model generally, but we also have an optimization for the local, let's say, the large portals, because they will not adopt it. They would ideally like us not to exist at the first place, but that's a second. That's another panel. That's a second problem. But you know, to this one, so we're actually very happy about the dictionary and about the look. It took 25 years to get here. And there is still a very long way to go, and building your own standard makes no sense. And it's also good for the small countries, because if you have a look, countries like Czech Republic with 10 million people, Slovakia with 5 million people, and other countries have one additional problem. The countries are so small, so if a large company from the US wants to go there, they will not even much consider it. It's such a small market, too much work, too much effort. But having that plug actually helps you and make it more attractive and easier to enter the markets. So we are generally a big fans of that.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. And that has been a stated goal of RESOs for a long time, is to really foster a plug-and-play environment. And so I'm happy to hear that that is the vision that you all share as well. And so I'm just curious about the different protocols that RESO has. You know, we've talked about how it has grown not just from the United States, but globally now. And other panels have discussed how they're developing software on their own internally or partnering. I know that in the United States, we've got the National Association of Realtors conference with an enormous trade show floor where vendors are plentiful. And so they want to help grow that ecosystem. So I just wonder, how would the adoption be better served? What are things that we can do to help technology come from wherever, whether it's the United States or any other country, so that we could have a more global standard?
I think that the more that we can get people following the RESO standards, like in our platform, we look at it as an ecosystem. And so we have the platform, we have an agent portal, we have mobile, and then we have multiple integrations and alliance partners that are all tying in, because we want our customers to be able to go just to our platform and do everything that they need to do without going to our platform and then going here and going here and going here. And so the more that we can get the standards and the data standards, it makes those integrations easier, and it allows us to get more alliance, so that when we have a customer, they can go to their members, and their members know that they can come to our system and be able to do basically everything they need to do. And having consistent data makes all of that so much easier.
Yeah. Well, and one of the things that RESO tries to do is the certification of MLSs. And so every time a new data dictionary version is adopted, then MLSs have sort of a countdown timer where they need to adopt it. So do you think that that is something that's working?
That's a great point. Yes, that should be one of the main things that works, the certification. And like just getting your system certified and go with the guidelines and all this, like everybody speak the same language. Unifying the data is so important, so the certification is important. And again, everything comes directly from the MLS, which is your data is coming out, speak the same language for RESO. So, by certified the certification program for your MLS or for your data is going to save everybody work in every country. The hassle, and everybody's going to speak the same language. Unifying the data and certification, yes.
I think in Europe, the biggest hurdle that RESO needs to take is getting the message to the agents that working together is the way to go. Because
yes.
in Europe, you have exclusive listings, you have non-exclusive listings. I'm from Belgium. We have a very strict rules on real estate, so I think the strictest in the whole world. But like in France, you can have one house that's for sale with 7, 10, 20 different agents. We saw a picture of a same listing at different prices. So we kind of have to get the mindset to the people that working together is much better. And why is it that in this market in Europe you have so many non-exclusive listings? It's because the end user, the client, we must not forget the client, because the client is our most important asset. The client says, okay, if I give it to you and you cannot sell it or you don't do enough for it, I'm kind of locked to you. So what they do, they say, I'll give it to you, I'll give it to you, I'll give it to you. But what they don't understand is that if they give it to everyone, nobody does anything. They kind of put it out there and they hope it gets sold. So if you give it to somebody exclusively, then you can have somebody investing in your listing. And that's something, it has nothing to do with standards, but it has to do with the mindset. That's something that we all, as leaders in Europe, need to get to our clients. Need to explain that it's better to work exclusively, but that exclusive listing will be disseminated with tens or hundreds of other agents working on it. So I think if you take something back from this convention, it's that we really need to work on a different mindset in Europe.
Yeah, I would add to that too, that like I mentioned earlier, we're in 20 countries now with Matrix. And what I've noticed is the ones that are most successful are the companies that we're working with that have spent a lot of time with the government and gotten the government on board at some extent, right? It's different with every government, and there are plenty of people that would prefer the government not to be involved because it changes their economics. But I will say that, and I think Arab MLS is a good example, is before we even got involved, Ahmed had worked with the governments in Egypt and in different countries in the Arab MLS, and having the government on board with what you're trying to do makes a tremendous difference because they have a lot of influence on the data, how the data can be used, and just being able to explain to them the positives of doing things a certain way. It really accelerates the amount of users. And then with more users, you have more data. With more data, you have more people. It's like a domino effect,
yeah,
you know.
Just network effect.
And so that's one thing that I do think, and I understand it's very difficult and it's different in every country. But you know, trying to use the countries that have been successful as an example of what it can do to improve the real estate for the consumer, I think is very important.
Martin?
You know, I think for us, I think looking about the RESO standards, I think there is additional things could be done. I give a good example in Europe, standardization, you know, of let's say square meters, you know, for usable area, things like that, because it's a wild west, wild east. That's one. The other thing interesting, it's very useful for cross-border transaction. I'll give you a fun example. Czech Republic has something called 1+KK. The only Czech people know what it is. It's a 1 room, 1 bathroom, 1 kitchen. So it's a KK, it's like these two parts. It's very different. Only Czech Republic has it, not even Slovakia. It used to be one country. So, you know, standardizing things like that would be very helpful for the cross-border transaction. Good for business. Just that, you know, we are also financing, being part of the bank also finances cross-border transactions. If you want to buy a place in Spain, for example, or in Croatia or elsewhere. That's one thing for the cross-border transaction. And then obviously moving forward, you have the real estate data, but I think what will be also very interesting to standardize the maybe the brokerage data, like the agents data, like the CRM sort of part, like the people, like the customers, who is the customer, what is the lead, and how these whole things play together. I think that will be also a very interesting part of the standardization.
So RISO does have like member and office resources there, but I don't know how they're translated, and that's definitely something that is a work in progress, is getting all of the different languages, and not just, for example, like Spanish maybe in Spain is a little bit different than Spanish in Mexico or other countries, and so having the ability to really be flexible on the language translation is something that's already in the plan for RISO. For those of you that want to know more, there is an educational course, the RED-B plan, or the RED-B educational course that RISO has created, is definitely something that you might want to check out if you want to know more there. But I like, Martin, that you talked about what you would like to see for your individual marketplace, and I wonder if the rest of you have specific things for your marketplaces that you think might be helpful.
I think it's time for everybody to work together. It's time, I think RISO as the company that have the data, standard data, RISO also need to be the company that bring everybody together. I see this as a big responsibility on RISO to bring everybody together. Like, I'm going to say it, I'm the first one to start the Middle East MLS, which is, I talk about this 3 years ago. 15 years ago was my dream to build the MLS. I've been lucky to work with a big company like CoreLogic. Today I have a great partnership with other big companies. But I think it's time for everybody to get together. And I see RISO can be a great connector. As a company have no, like it's not related to any part of other part. As a company is between all of us. Can unify everybody together, build this kind of momentum, because today at the Middle East, I see, I'm Egyptian American. I lived in America for 37 years. I work in America for real estate for 25 years. So I see this as a bigger, like today, all the eyes is coming to the Middle East, which is great, but we want RISO also to come, to be part of this, to come, like let's say at a company like Arab MLS, the same like, and they're doing a great job, I'm not saying, but we want RISO to come and, support our business the same way CoreLogic came. It was a huge challenge for us to get CoreLogic to the Middle East, but they also saw the potential before everybody else. When I went and I talked to CoreLogic about the MLS, they were like, we're not interested to open at the Middle, like we're expanding big, but give us another year, but they saw the opportunity before everybody, and they came, and Scott is here. We invested millions of dollars. Like our project is not the project that, for, like you said, entrepreneur that spend like, we were talking about it, is our project is not the guy, he have a dream and he spend $1 million. They invested millions, we invested millions. A big part of our company, Arab MLS, because a lot of people ask, 25% of my company owned by the biggest bank at the Middle East, and nobody knows the first time I say this. It's Al-Baraka Bank, and they are the biggest mortgage lender at the whole Middle East, and they own 25% of our company. And they are like Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac at the middle in America. They are the Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac in the mortgage, and the Islamic, we do it in an Islamic way because in our religion. And this is, again, this is big part of the religion that a lot of people doesn't understand about our culture. So, we want to have RISO step into the Middle East. I'm talking about my markets, and connect us with everybody around the world. And, I see big potential. I see big business happening. And this convention, the whole forum, it showed that there is movement about the MLS. And a lot of people now seeing the potential and the jobs can the MLS create around the world. Because it's not about the MLS. It's about creating jobs. It's about unifying the data. It's about making the transaction easy. by using Rezo and having an MLS and unified data. So I see everybody have to come together now. This is the time that we all have to get together, to work together.
One of the things I would say is historically, CoreLogic, we didn't proactively go to other countries and look to set up an MLS. We've obviously done work with Omni that is in Latin America. And then we met with Ahmed, and he had a vision, and he was capitalized to where we could put all the resources and focus on 18, 24 months to get off the ground. But we've learned, we've had some partners that we've partnered with that didn't make it, which is going to be common. And then we have others that have made it and are being successful. And so now, we have the team and the experience to where we're proactively seeking out companies that want to start an MLS in their country. And we've even built profiles on kind of what that looks like and what those individuals, we like them to have the government relations, be well capitalized, to have technology teams that can work with us. And so I do think that there will be more international MLSs growing at different paces, at different styles over time. But the more that we can kind of frame them towards one standard, they may all come at different times, but if they're all going in the same direction, we're all going to be a lot better off.
Makes sense.
I think there's one thing that RESO needs to not take care of, but be conscious of. That is, and I think that's a big mistake made in the States. You centralize all the data, and then you have a Zillow that kind of plugs in and takes all that data and then sells it back to the agents. And I'm here the voice of an agent, because I'm an agent myself. So that's something that we in Europe, I think, need to be, and in the Middle East, need to be very careful about, because when you're on a special system in Zillow, and you do a sale, you need to give 40% of your commission to them. So I don't think that it's the intention of RESO nor the intention of the MLSs in Europe to go that way. So as Saul said, we must learn from our past mistakes, and if we would reinvent it, how would we do it? So there's no way that YESMLS is going to work with, in Belgium we have Moath, that they can kind of work on the back of the agent. So that's something that is very important in Europe, also for the mindset of the agents that want to join, because if they know that that's a possibility, that their data will be sold and then they need to buy it back, that's a no-go.
I think maybe for me, when I look at it, I think there are two parts. I think one is the RESO itself, and I think to me it's a data standard, and they're doing a great job. I'm really happy, and we are really happy to be able to build on top of all the great work you are doing. And obviously there's a lot that could be done moving forward, but it's a real estate data standard. On the other side, looking into the MLSs and looking into the transaction, to me, real estate is local. It's not. It's global, but it's local in the same time. I cannot imagine, the way I see it, Czech Republic, it's sort of governed by the Czech Republic, but if I want to do cross-border transaction, I should be able to find someone else trustworthy in that other market and seeing that sort of a international collaboration. But I can easily see that each market is very unique, and going and entering any other market technologically just doesn't make sense enough. You need people, and you need to understand the market, and the markets look very similar, so to say, but they are very different in the same time. So I think, therefore, I see the real estate being local, the transaction being local, and the global-wise, I see the standard in terms of a data standard, and creating some sort of a standard of the quality of the services, and sort of creating a trust, through that. If I do a transaction in Belgium, there is someone I can trust on the other side who has the same principles.
Yeah, of course.
Like referral. Yeah. And definitely, RESO is obviously focused on the technology level. to where it is nice, though, I will say, going to their work group meetings, and you really have a cross-section of brokers and MLSs and software vendors and agents and associations like the National Association of Realtors or others. So it is really fun to be able to work with that cross-section towards a singular goal. And sometimes things that are not related to RESO certainly come up in mostly the lobby bar, but there definitely is a difference between just the technology rules and the business rules, which is a lot of what MLSs do. So
maybe it's a good idea that they have, of course, every time we need to go to a workshop of RESO, we need to take a plane, that they kind of have hubs in Europe, in Middle East, that we can work.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
There we go.
We need some offices, Sam. We need some offices in Dubai or Egypt or Abu Dhabi or like, you know, so. Yeah. But I have one point, the consumer also is so important. Okay. Because I always teach, you know, everybody at my company and, you know, in Egypt, actually, but nobody understands how powerful the Egyptian real estate market is. We just had a deal with the Abu Dhabi for $38 billion, just one island in Egypt. We just signed this with the government. Mr. Jassim here, he knows the deal and everything from the government in Abu Dhabi. So we sell at least $1 trillion a year. We always think, like, we have 140 million people. We have licensed brokers, over 6 million or 7 million people. They do real estate. And we sell millions of dollars. It's always about the consumer. You know, we have to think about what the consumer is looking for. How they're going to read the data. How they're going to understand the data. When RESO do the data, let's say for a country like Egypt or the Middle East, the buying behaviors is completely different than the buying behaviors in America. I lived in America. I bought houses in America. I sold. And in Egypt and the Middle East, the consumer behavior is different. So I think it's time also to do some survey and research to understand if you want to explore your business or you want to expand in these countries, you want to understand the process or the behavior. And this is one of the things CoreLogic did, actually. We did due diligence, and we had some research and buying behavior, how people thinking, how they're going to do transaction, how the MLS work. We took some part, like we did a modification to the MLS. When you see the MLS we did for Egypt, it's different than Dubai, it's different than America. Why? Based on the buying behavior. So I think RESO, like we said, we need Sam to open office at the Middle East, and we're going to support all the way. Like I'm saying we will support a RESO office in the Middle East and in Europe. And I see Europe is upcoming huge. Once we have the MLS implemented in Europe, this will be a history making. And, you know, I wish you guys all the best. And, you know, I'm looking forward to work with everybody here. Like, we're looking forward to work with Europe and connect with each other, to have one global market connected with each other's.
That's the dream.
Yes, it's going to happen. No, it's not a dream. Like, if you think what I think 3 years ago, I will never imagine having an MLS working today, having a company like CoreLogic. I have vendors is begging me to work today. No, it's not a dream.
No, that's the dream that a client can connect with an agent in Czechoslovakia or in Belgium
Italy.
Or in France, and that he wants to buy something in another part of the world, that we connect them in a perfect way and in a safe way.
Correct.
And I think we need to go.
I agree with you 100%.
That's certainly a wonderful vision to pursue. And with that, I think we're out of time. Please help me thank our wonderful panel. Thank you.
Thank you.
I don't know about you guys, but that was an extremely inspiring panel. An MLS outside of the US is not a novel concept. It's proven. They've done it. They put in the hard work. It's not easy, but they've done it. So I've heard a few times here that the collaboration and trust amongst brokerages is one of the biggest barriers. So we put together this panel here, which is going to dive into what technology tools that you can utilize to help spur some of those collaborative technologies that will help you work better with your fellow brokers. So with that being said, let me introduce you to Marilyn Wilson, who is the CEO of the Wave Group.
You guys can come out. Great to see everybody here. We're very excited to be talking about more and more of the concept of collaboration. So as Joe was just saying, and as we've been prepping for this panel, the concept of an MLS in essence is a collaboration, right? That everything we do is about collaboration. But we've got some really interesting participants here that are going to delve into that more deeply as to what do we do with collaboration, how do we deepen it, how do we build on top of the concept of an MLS. So I'm gonna kick it off. Fayyad, you want to talk about what is your definition of collaboration as it relates to technologies for this space?
I think of collaboration technology as the reason why the MLS exists in many ways. Real estate agents and brokers can utilize technology on their own if they're working in a vacuum or working just by themselves. But to create a network of real estate agents or brokers in a region or across multiple regions that can do things together in an effective, productive way, you need a technology platform that allows them to work in a transparent and clear way. The MLS listing data is a clear example of that, right? You cannot have it with just one agent or a few agents working separately. But other technology, like Supra, for example, where providing access to the real estate agents amongst each other in a trusted and transparent way is another example of collaboration technology. And you do need an association or an MLS to organize that to make it really productive and effective.
So Jeremy actually operates an MLS that's owned by brokers, which is always an interesting concept. There's just, I think, less than 20 in the US that are organized that way. But what's your definition of collaboration in technology?
Is my mic on? I said earlier, we were formed to help brokers transact real estate. Brokers are in many marketplaces, and we're here this week because of international collaboration. And if you look at a market like Atlanta and you look at a market like Dubai, we have a massive opportunity to help facilitate collaboration here between those two markets, MLS being a data core, if you will, but we have so many international buyers and sellers that come from the Atlanta marketplace, and there are so many other international marketplaces like Vancouver, et cetera. And so for us, it's all about how do we make their lives easier between markets, because in the US, we have some overlapping markets. Mm-hmm. That makes us better as MLSs because sometimes we have to compete, which helps us raise the bar. But how do we do that at the global scale? Because we do very well in our own backyard in collaborating and helping them locally, but globally is where we see an opportunity. And that's true collaboration, is helping the global marketplace.
Awesome. And Ravi lives in Munich, but you do a lot of work in the Indian market, correct?
Yeah.
So tell us about what does it feel like over there? How does collaboration technology help you there?
So tech has already been in real estate for some time now, but tech functions very siloed. So agents, brokers, and other professionals in the industry, they all use tech, but there is no seamless communication or interaction between different aspects of home buying or selling process. It could range from listing properties to, it could also be home viewing experience at the end. Everything is siloed. And that is really a broken system because a lot of collaboration is not happening. And my vision of how I see from India or those regions is how can they seamlessly collaborate? Since we do not have a concept of MLS, a lot of things that are being shared here is something that is going to be helpful for a vision towards collaborative but not siloed experiences, how I would say it.
And Fayyad, you had an interesting definition or distinction between MLS collaboration and other types of technologies. Do you want to share that with the group?
Yes, I would like to remind many of our visitors here that we take pride in Supra being one of the companies that really pioneered technology, with providing shared access, trusted access. Before that, most real estate agents used to travel to visit each other, to pick up the key and go show a listing. And we came out with a technology that really facilitated access without having to travel and pick up the key, but maintained the trust and the transparency of who's actually accessing and providing authorized access. We do that at the local level initially, right? For an MLS or within an association. And we do that successfully because usually the association provides that access, or at least requires that access for all of their members, or that service across the board. But we also became in a position to provide the access across multiple regions and facilitated that collaboration between different associations and different MLSs across their borders, across their regional borders, to enable them to really work together and work effectively. So, FMLS is one example of the associations that really drives collaborations outside of their own borders. And we have it in multiple regions in the US where multiple associations do collaborate and across a state or even across state borders. And in some cases across international borders. We have associations collaborating between the US and Canada. And this collaboration really facilitates not only efficiency and productivity, but the data and information generated from these activities are sent back to the MLS and being put to use in multiple different ways.
So if you were starting in a country that doesn't have any of the infrastructure yet, what level of connection would you create for the lockbox? Would you have it go the entire country?
It's hard to imagine another country the size of the US right now who might jump on it. But yes, actually yes, because now we have the technology to make access and collaboration really trusted and transparent. So we can create a collaboration platform that stretches across an entire country or region, and in some cases, in the case of Europe, across the continent even, and still provide the security, the customization, the data trail, the audit trail of access and use available for all the participants. So I think the technology is advanced enough that you can start with a collaborative platform and customize as you need it.
Great. I like that. European lockboxes across. That's amazing.
Exactly. If you're shopping, if you're in Northern Europe, in Scandinavia or other parts of the colder climate and looking to buy a beach house, you're open to possibilities, whether it's in Spain, France, Italy, Greece. So why have to go to separate market each time for the search? Why can't it be an open platform where you can just look at this entire set of possibilities from one lens?
Well, there's no reason we can't do these things technologically. I think Jeremy mentioned it earlier, that the people is always the hardest part of this, but it's great to see we have technology. So Jeremy, I'd say you're one of the MLS sort of trailblazers in trying to find lots of different ways and lots of different markets to collaborate with. Tell us about some of the things that you're doing.
Yeah, we believe that the brokers and agents should be able to do business in the areas they're licensed to do business. So in the state of Georgia, we have state licensing that gives you the right to do real estate within the state, but then we have 20 separate either MLSs or associations who manage access to the property through Supra products and elsewhere. And we did recently release a case study where we have 9 MLSs now that are like-minded who have agreed through Supra technology to allow the licensee into the home even if they're not a member of that association or MLS, because we can validate their license in the state, so we should not be a barrier to entry in doing that. And so we've got a case study on that. But the people is the process challenge of getting that approved and getting it understanding. And there have been always fear factors as a barrier to entry that, oh, they don't know our marketplace, they don't know our floodplains, they don't know the uniqueness of this city or that city. And we've had this reciprocation now with 9 MLSs for 4+ years, and there's not been a single incident that's occurred, to my knowledge, that there was unauthorized access, that the individual wasn't licensed, there was a problem of the actual fear factor conversations. And we've also been creating referral networks between those MLSs on the MLS data front. It's great to have access into the front door to show your consumer, the buyer, that home, but you need to know what the listing is like as well as an agent. And so we have collaborated with data sharing as well with Stellar MLS, who is here, Mobile, Alabama. Macon is a tiny town that's an hour and a half from Atlanta, but its own MLS database. Well, we now have reciprocation from the data and from the lockbox, so they can find the property in their native MLS, be it FMLS or be it Macon or be it Stellar, and then they can go show the box if they're authorized to do so. We want to eliminate the barriers to entry, and we've put that into place and working with more and more like-minded MLSs to do that. And we're sharing data not just with people in the Southeast, but we have data shares with California Regional MLS, and we track and we see that 5% of the time FMLS agents are searching for Mobile, Alabama properties. 10% of the time they don't even search the local MLS database, they're searching the data shares. They're collaborating a massive referral network because people move, not just because of COVID, but people work remotely. And we want to extend that collaboration further past just the United States. We have the same data sharing capabilities and functionality with Omni MLS, which covers Mexico and some areas of Central America. But just the conversations here is we want to collaborate globally with the data and give the brokers and the agents the ability to do their jobs easily, because they just want to put food on their table, and they do that by earning revenue by their buyers and sellers. So let's enable that. Let's not hinder it.
So we did a study recently at Wave Group that supported what you said, that the fears, which many times are unfounded, are what slow these kinds of processes down, right? So it's not, the technology is really not the limiter anymore. It's more the thought process. And what I love about what I've seen happen in your market is you're putting the brokerage, the owner of the companies at the heart. And if they say, I want to do business across the state, or I want to go do business in Alabama or Louisiana or California or wherever else it might be, you're enabling that, right? So the MLS is an enabler. It's not only a collaborator, it's an enabler. In a way, of course, that covers license law and things like that, but you're opening up opportunity.
It can also be a blocker. We would prefer it be an enabler.
Yes, exactly. So Ravi, what do you see in terms of collaboration? What kind of technologies do you see that are the most valuable these days?
So I like what Supra does in terms of giving access management. And when I say access management, the challenges are like in countries like us, where we have the block boxes, but they do not have just-in-time information that Supra does, right? And that is my favorite use case, because if you are giving access at a certain time, either to a member agent or to a non-member agent, you can remotely configure that box. And the moment you give access, he can download, he can have just-in-time information about that property from the MLS. This is not possible in the country that I come from, right? And that is the true use case of what collaboration can do. And that's why it's a lot of mess, it's a lot of inefficiencies in the regions where we do not have a concept of MLS, where we do not have a concept of open data standards. And I'm just ruining the fact that conferences like this, in fact, that's why we created our platform, PropTechBuzz, where we are generating awareness for MLSs, for open standards. In fact, for Africa MLS, which is led by Mrs. Vicky, we created the MLS Africa ecosystem on our platform just to raise more and more awareness. Yeah, so that's
and
my
so
point
you brought up something very interesting too. The Real Estate Standards Organization, and this was talked about in our last panel, is very well established in some markets and nascent or not even existent in others, right? So in a case like in India, where we really haven't gotten there yet, right? I'm not sure why. It's kind of an important country, but that's a different conversation.
Lack of awareness and fear, because they still feel that even if you build it, agents will run their own business. There will be there will be no collaboration. So I think it's fear of the unknown, lack of awareness, and I think I still have to meet Sam that we need to do a conference in India as well.
So, but you mentioned specifically resource standards, even in the markets where it's very well established, could do better job with extending to developers that are building new types of technologies, to service providers, to mortgage, title, variety of other things. Tell me about your vision about how that might work.
Yeah, so open data standards, let me give you an example. As I said, I have built this community PropTechBuzz where we have these conversations. So I had my friend, CTO of OcuCell, and he and I had a deep conversation about it. And what OcuCell was building, and this will, for the audience who are still need a strong use case to understand what resource open standards do, or any open standards do, is they help you build better products with better experience and better usability. So what OcuCell was trying to build was their primary product was AI-led listing manager. And they were struggling because while they were listing it, when they were publishing in different MLSs, they have to hard code the interfaces for every MLS. And as a result, their entire experience and usability was becoming messier. And hence what they did was they moved this publishing interface into their servers, and they used the edit API from RISO. It was just one way to interact with that interface. So they did not have to create proprietary interfaces for every MLS. And I think that was a really good use case for how open data standards can help create, because as entrepreneurs, as product developers, all you need to focus is build great solutions and not even worry about interoperability, and that is what RISO does. I hope I answered part of
Yeah,
it.
and actually, Jeremy, I'd love to ask you that, because I know you've done a lot with across MLS markets. Have you done some thinking, too, about creating the interoperability Ravi talks about into the entire transaction? So into mortgage, into title, into other places?
We see the industry going there. It is not there today. Obviously, RISO standards are very listing, property, agent, and office specific, brokerage specific. What we don't see as of yet is the full transaction. Something that Supra added into our marketplace recently was the ability for agents to provide appraisers, home inspectors, and those type of entities into the property through the same lockbox system. Even though they weren't a member of the MLS, they're part of the home buying process and the solution, and the platforms that they need to use along the entire process to market the home, to stage the home, as we heard earlier, to cultivate their customers. It doesn't end there. It starts with doing statistical analysis on what a listing should be priced at, which we heard earlier today, all the way through how do they get their credit checks and how do they get financial approval, which is different in different countries, and how do they get their funding, and then how do they get to closing, and how do they get their inspections and appraisals and title, et cetera. And so the perfect world is interoperability with those organizations. There are standards in other organizations like mortgage lending and title, but they're not connected yet to allow that. And some will say the fear factor of competitors creating some of these standards are negative, but I would challenge that to look at Bluetooth, because Apple makes phones, Samsung makes phones, but when they go into the Bluetooth organization to create the Bluetooth standard, there are two competitors that sit there together to say, how can I make my Samsung TV Aircast my Apple Stream? And they work together on the standard. So these competitors that either create the same product or competing products in the same real estate PropTech industry can still sit at the table and still be viable, functional companies. and they can make the best phone or the best Bluetooth speaker or the Bluetooth headset or whatever it might be in a competitive, successful light, but do it at a much easier process. And we need that for the full agent experience, but it still starts at MLS helping facilitate that at the core.
Absolutely. So we heard, I think it was somebody from New Jersey was talking about earlier today, that brokers struggle because they belong to many, many MLSs, even if they're right next door. I have a friend that I think he has 2 agents and has to belong to 5 MLSs to do his business, so the cost of his data integration is insane. Are there ways out there, if you guys, I know you're working on one that you might want to share about, actually I think you have 3,
we do.
Where you enable brokers to be able to input into one place and push to many. Can you explain how those work?
Well, essentially, we have one interface an agent can use to manage their listings regardless of what multiple listing service organization it belongs to. It could belong to YESMLS, it could belong to FMLS, and so our brokers and agents have access to OcuSell listing management. They have access to Remine Ad Edit. They have access to Paragon Publisher, and they can actually use one interface of their choice to manage their listing, which is pushed into multiple MLSs. And it's a scenario where Georgia MLS is my direct competitor, but for the ability of that agent to do business seamlessly, I can't stand up here and talk about helping them do their transactions and then not in some respect, just like Apple and Samsung, not work with my competitor, because that agent at the end of the day can be more efficient to manage their listings through a software of their choice, and that data is synced amongst our MLS, Georgia MLS, Mobile, Alabama, et cetera, and others. And so that's what we all need to think about, even though we all have competitors, is enabling their lives to be much easier to do their jobs. And we have that in place today with 3 different companies that help use RISO standards for editing listings through their software, and they don't have to hard code hundreds of MLSs just in the US, or extending that to maybe we want that exposed into YESMLS in Belgium because of an international marketplace. And that standard exists today, which is the RISO update standard, and continues to evolve for many markets.
And that could be a broker choice, right?
Yep.
So if one of the teams from EXP this morning that operates in multiple markets could say, I need these 5. Another group could say, I need these 2. And it truly could be a global method for inputting listings if we so chose to do that, right?
We can only facilitate the technology. The broker and the agent know where to market their listing. So it's our job to help them enable marketing their listing, because that's their expertise. So let's enable allowing them to use their expertise to know, to your point, that listing would be best exposed to as many consumers as possible, because we've been talking about consumer transparency as well.
Correct.
And being able to allow the broker and agent, and the more eyes that are on a listing internationally, the more the seller has an opportunity to sell that property either faster or maybe for more. From that perspective, there could be a buyer anywhere in the world for that property, and we need to enable that, and that's why I'm glad we're all here today.
And I bet there's a lot of agents that wouldn't mind selling a $38 billion island anywhere around the world. That's amazing.
We have a $46 million house for sale in FMLS today.
There you go.
And I can guarantee you that the likelihood that someone will buy that locally is slim. The likelihood that someone internationally will buy a $46 million home with $10 million in artwork, as appraised by Christie's, is going to be an international buyer.
Amazing. So we've talked a little bit about RISO, but I'd love to ask each of you specifically, how do the RISO standards help your business where it is today, and where do you see that it might help your business moving forward? We'll start with you, Fayyad.
Standards make the collaboration a lot easier and a lot more transparent and effective. So any area has standards. Well, let me back up, maybe saying RISO standards are almost the natural continuation of the collaboration idea. We started collaborating among agents and brokers, and we were successful in a few different technologies or efforts, but then the technology evolved, and there are so many more options that actually started requiring some sort of standardization. So I really think standards put in place by RISO and the likes are really critical for this to continue and be effective in the long term. And it makes work together a lot faster. It makes for new companies trying to come into the space and serve the agents have a lower barrier to entry and plug in. So I think it's productivity across the board, and everyone will benefit from this standardization.
So Jeremy, as the former CEO of RISO, you know a lot about this topic. What are the problems that you think that RISO standards are solving today in the industry, and are the ones that potentially can go even further in the future?
Well, I think today we are fortunate to have a marketplace with those standards that you do not. And it's a great comparison between US and India that we hosted a hackathon in 2018. We gave them access to multiple MLS data sets, and in 72 hours, the things that the individuals created for that competition was just mind-boggling as to what they could do, because they actually will just show up and, we have Georgia Tech in our backyard and phenomenal economists, obviously, from Georgia Tech, and we give them data access all the time. And the students there go, wow, you have a schema and you have an API, and they don't even call us back, and they do their research project or their thesis, and they can access it. 10 years ago, we would have had to been holding their hands through the process of how to access the data and what does it look like. And I think that's where now we can mature that more in the US for those other business segments in the transaction, but we need to focus here today on getting that in your hands. So
I want one of those hackathons for India.
Yes.
We should plan it.
And so we need to get it further in the opportunity to increase global access to do some of the things that we have fortunate had in the United States from a standards perspective.
So you can build your new resource program from scratch because you don't have anything yet. What does a country that is still emerging into understanding and embracing standards needs? How can we all help you get there?
So as I said, everything, I think Ahmed mentioned, right, it took him 15 years to bring it to Arab MLS, but it should not take 15 years. I think it has a gestation period because it starts from overcoming fear to adopting, to learning, awareness, and then adoption, right? So it has to go through this cycle. And that's exactly what I've been striving to create communities. And I would invite all my connections. This is the first time that I'm here in such a conference. I would invite stakeholders from different parts of the world to come over and engage in these conversations, create hackathons, create virtual conversations. You don't have to have an operational complexity to actually have a physical conference. We can do that later, but have virtual conversations before we can make a headway towards that direction. And I'm happy to do that. I think I'm the only Indian here. Is there anybody else from India here? Nobody. But I'm happy to make that early first move.
Wonderful. Fayyad, I'll let you close it out today. Where can collaboration go next? What can we all do together using the things that are available to us today?
To address that, I'd like to emphasize why we still need collaboration and how critical it is. For the MLS to exist, there has to be collaboration in the first place. But collaboration technology continue to reinforce the value of the MLS. As I mentioned earlier, real estate agents can utilize a multitude of technologies and tech services out there. But for the critical ones, whether it's the data listing or the access to the appointments, the scheduling of those appointments, the other technologies like offer management or document management and transaction and so on, you do need a network of agents to be working together to make this work. And that network depends on the MLS. So if you're debating on about the value of the MLS in the long term, these technologies really emphasize the need for the MLS continuing and moving forward. And the way as it moves forward, we're seeing a lot more creative use of these technologies by the MLS. There are more and more MLSs are enlisting technology services and across the board, putting them to use among their agents, but also taking back some of the data being generated by these technologies. For us in Supra, we generate data around the appointment, the showing appointment, the arrival time, exit, the length of the appointment, who's coming to show the house, and so on. And a lot of these generate very valuable user insight and consumer behavior that the MLS can put to use to create more productivity for their own agents. And really, ultimately, they can use them around things around pricing and the level of interest from buyers around pricing and days on market and so on, a number of showings that are being generated. So more technology, more data insights, more AI coming to use, making this really, really valuable for the MLS and the way they put it back in the hands of agents and brokers.
Yeah, I guess, Jeremy, I'll ask, this is not on our list, but I know you can answer this for me. At the end of the day, because we are all here to facilitate business opportunity, that's what MLSs are for, right? Do you believe in your heart, and why, do people that participate in MLSs, are they actually more profitable organizations ultimately? Not the MLSs, but the practitioners, yes.
They're more profitable because they're maximizing their opportunities for their buyers and sellers, and then we're helping them be efficient with their expenses at the same time and making them more efficient and reducing their cost, because the MLS does have the opportunity to have a volume buying power at an enterprise software level because of serving 50,000 plus agents. So we can make core software available for cheaper, we can lower their technology cost, we can make them more efficient, and then we can expand their sellers' opportunities to expose their listings. That drives profitability for those brokers and agents, absolutely.
So for the markets where everybody's fearful, remember that at the end of the day, we've seen it in market after market, practitioners are better off if they participate in something like this. So thank you so much. Great discussion.
That was an incredible panel. Marilyn, I love that line that this technology implementation is no longer a technology problem, it's a people problem moving forward. And I think if we could take one thing out from this conference, it's that. If there's a will, there's a way. The technology aspect's been solved for. So before we get into our last session of the day here, we have one more video from a sponsor, and we'll jump into that right now.
Unlock MLS isn't just shaping the real estate market, we're shaping futures. With cutting-edge tools, unparalleled real estate data and listings, and powerful market insights, we're building a stronger, more vibrant housing market in Central Texas. Delivering real-time data and market insights, we empower agents to lead in a dynamic, evolving industry. Their success and the satisfaction of their clients are what drives us.
Okay, let me put my moderator hat on. I'll go from host to moderator. So we've talked about three really specific perspectives today. So we've talked about the organizational perspective, we talked about the transaction perspective and the technology perspective, and we've talked about the broker perspective. One that we haven't touched on is the government perspective. How does the government look at rules? How does it look at regulations? And what are they doing to empower, one, data standards in their market, but more importantly, and I'm sure they'll all tell you, consumer transparency and safety is going to be their #1 goal. So with that being said, I want to have the great panelists come up and we'll get this going. All right, so this is quite frankly an incredible lineup here on stage, and so your resumes are too impressive for me to mess up. So I'm going to give you guys each a minute, go over your background and kind of tell us, you know, what you do now, what your background is, and what your organizational goal is.
Great. Hello, my name is Jessica Hickok, and I am the CEO of ARELLO, which stands for the Association of Real Estate License Law Officials. And we're here today to bring the government perspective, but one thing that we've been talking about is the missing license data. So my background has been in real estate. It's all I know. I actually started off a lifetime ago as a real estate agent, then a broker. In fact, my broker that taught me everything about real estate is sitting in the audience today. And then from there, I have moved on to be a local board association executive, the regional manager of a large MLS, regional MLS in southern Missouri. And then I ran the State Association of Realtors in the state of Oklahoma for the last 7 years prior to taking on this role with the International ARELLO, and I've been able to take that role since January 1st. So thank you for having me.
Great, thank you. Albana, how about over to you?
Hello, everyone. I'm Albana Shala Bunjaku. I'm Director of Immovable Property Appraisals Department in the Ministry of Finance. Also, I'm Head of Oversight Council of Immovable Property Appraisals. Before that, I was Director of Property Tax Department. My master's degree is in bank finance and accounting, so the last 2 years I started to explore more and also in the banking sector. So I'm also the member of one of the commercial bank in Kosovo. I support a lot like a local expert association of municipality and also the government. I'm a member of Committee of Land and we make a policy for Prime Minister office.
Great. Moath.
Hello everyone again. Second time you see me. My name is Moath Maqbol. I'm General Manager of ADRES based in Abu Dhabi. I've been in real estate as long as I can remember after I graduated in engineering, surveying engineering degree. Before being a GM of ADRES, and ADRES, as I said, is the digital transformation arm of the Abu Dhabi Real Estate Government Center. Before I jumped to that organization, I was working with the largest listed developer in UAE called Aldar Properties. Aldar Properties is one of the developers, probably the biggest in the Middle East. They are the developer, if you are aware of, behind Yas Island. I remember we work with them building Ferrari World in Abu Dhabi. For the people who haven't visited Abu Dhabi, Ferrari is the theme park. They're the developer behind the Formula One racetrack in Abu Dhabi. And the developer, when I work with them, have built more than, I would say, 70 to 80,000 properties, I would say, in the last decade. And from education perspective, I completed my master's degree as well in real estate. So real estate, typically, everything as I know in my experience. So good to see you again.
Zühtü, over to you.
Thank you again.
Hi, everyone. My name is Zühtü. I'm from Istanbul, Turkey. I used to like watching a sitcom called How I Met Your Mother. There is a character there, Barney Stinson. Maybe you know him. He's a big-time liar, and once he goes to a bar and he tells people that he's working on a secret government space agency called NASA, the secret NASA, and then he says he's been to the moon, the secret moon. So I lied to Ali Reza, and I told him that I was working on a secret government real estate project called FMLS. So I'm here. Full disclosure, I have nothing to do with governments. I'm not a part of a government organization. I represent a real estate professionals association in Istanbul. I'm on their board, and what we do is we're trying to help the government with their rules and regulations on the real estate at the moment. We've also implemented an MLS program for our own members, which was a huge failure. So I'm also a failure as well, not just a liar, but a failure too. So here I am.
Thank you. All right, so let's jump into kind of the regulatory and consumer protection initiatives. The countries represented here, some have very strict standards, some have very strict standards that aren't adhered to, and some don't have any standards at all. So, Jessica, I'll start with you. As the CEO of ARELLO, you're tasked with bringing real estate regulators from all 50 states together to share best practices that raise industry standards and ensure consumer protections. Why are these regulators and in effect ARELLO need to be involved with data and practice standardization?
Well, there's a lot to unpack there. But ARELLO is probably one of those entities that has been overlooked for a while. We are the trade association for real estate commissions and jurisdictions and those that are operating not just in the United States, but we've got provinces in Canada as well. And what we do is, what's so important about what we do is we not only accredit the national exam, so when you're getting a license and taking that exam to get into the business, then we are working then to promote a qualified candidate into the business. So therefore, then they would join the Association of Realtors or join the MLS as a subscriber or as a broker participant. But what's important about the data there is we have the license verification data. So we run the license verification system on our website that shows every public license that's out there. So the real estate commissions then feed that license data to us. Then what we can do is then be there to also keep a list in a program called the Disciplinary Action Database. So if there is a discipline on a license and that license was being transported to another state, the state jurisdictions can pull that. So it's extremely important for us with the licensure data to have the right hand knowing what the left hand is doing.
So important, so important. Thank you. Albana, we've had a couple of conversations with you and your team, and with Kosovo being one of the newer European countries, you're kind of having to build these regulations on the fly here. What are you doing to kind of transform the real estate market and bring more transparency and therefore investment confidence into the Kosovo?
Yes, as you mentioned, as a new country, after the war in 1999, we had to start from the zero, even in the real estate market. So we had a lot of projects, a lot of donation, a lot of foreign investment, but we have a lack in legal basis. So we started the first step to draft the law. So we started with the law on property tax, the law on expropriation, and law exchange the property, and the later law in public property. So I remember when I was included in the government in 2009 in one project to build a highway to connect Kosovo with Albania. We started to expropriate the land, but we didn't have appraisals. So how to compensate the private owner? After 2009, we started to work to create a regulation, and in 2012, we released to have in Kosovo the first generation of appraisals. So I had the luck to be first group, first generation. After that, in parallel way, we worked in the law cadastre. Because of the law, because of the war, we don't have a document of owners. So we started, we built the cadastre, the textual and graphic data. So now it's open, the graphic data is open. The citizen can show. Also you can get online the certificate of owner. And in last December, we amended in the Parliament of Law on cadastre, so now we can publish the contract of sales. That opened us a way to create one mobile app. There we will put contract of sales, we'll put the value from taxation, and we will put the value for each purpose that we will finish the appraisal. So the contract of sales, I don't know, will help us a lot because are underestimated or overestimated because of a lot of reasons to not pay a tax for money laundering, etc. But it is a new start, a new way to have a fair market value.
Great. And how's the market responded to these new regulations?
The first hesitated, but now are good. They will accept.
Good to hear. All right, Moath. Your organization is bringing digital transformation to the Abu Dhabi Real Estate Center. All of these kind of efforts are kind of built out of necessity moving forward. So tell us about the landscape in Abu Dhabi before your organization, and what are you doing to kind of improve that its standing in the UAE and the digital transformation efforts within the UAE as a whole?
Yeah. The good say here is the best company is created, the company is created out of necessity. And I believe ADRES is no different than that. So I would say in Abu Dhabi, there was a law, I would say not a comprehensive one, I would say between 2000 to 2010. In 2016, there was a major shift in Abu Dhabi regulation, out of which they have published a comprehensive real estate law protects everyone. Yet, the law, as amazing, has been written to cover all the aspects. It wasn't accompanied by a proper digital transformation, I would say, implementation. So, through a public-private partnership between ADRES and the government in Abu Dhabi, we have come to place in 2020 to form the idea, and then we started really working on 2021. And I'll give you some context in terms of numbers, what was before and what's after. Because of loss of implementation of the regulation, number of registered brokers in Abu Dhabi was around, I say in 2020, the licensed one, not the really working in the ground, because there's a big difference. The licensed ones are around, I would say, 40 to 50. When we started working on real systems, and before systems, the processes, we're now up to 1,500 licensed brokers. And that's only brokers. But we've also targeted the real estate valuers, the surveyors, the auctioneers, all the professions. So that's sort of a jump. When we started, Abu Dhabi been ranked as non-transparent markets because of the data transparency, etc. And I would say 1 year after we started, the first thing we focused in transparency. So we push data to people, to public. And now Abu Dhabi, for the second consecutive report issued on the global real estate transparency worldwide, is always the top city improver.
Wow, congrats.
Yeah, you can read that online. That's how is ADRES helped the government doing that transformation. We talk to people, we talk to developers, we talk to banks, we talk to customers, trying to bring them all together. So the idea is bridge the gap between all of them, trying to put them all on in a transparent, I would say, processes, and then build a platform that match these processes, and then hopefully you will have a more mature, I would say, market and processes.
That's great. That's incredibly powerful, and congrats on the success with that.
Thank you very much.
That's something to be very proud of.
Thank you very much.
Zutu, you're the odd man out up here, being a broker here, but as we talked about kind of throughout the whole day, the industry doesn't always get the best rap. So talk to us from a broker's perspective. Why is it important for you guys and your organization to work with your government to help pass more consumer transparency rules and policies that uplift the industry?
Here's the rundown of the Turkish market. If there are 100 listings in the market, 10 of them would be exclusive. Around 15, 20 of them would be open listings. And around 70 of them would be fake listings. Now, when I say fake listings, I'm not saying open listings. Fake listings are listings that don't actually exist. Now, I, as a RE/MAX office, have to work with only exclusive contracts. That's RE/MAX Turkey. That's how we operate. So every time I have a listing, 10 or 12 more listings will pop up in the same neighborhood, usually 5 or 10% cheaper than my property, same size, same number of rooms, much better pictures. And so you, as a potential buyer, when you look at things, when you look at a platform, a listing platform, you usually sort things according to its prices. And what you do is you call the cheaper option with the better pictures, same neighborhood. So these guys are buyer poaching. In Turkey, when you are representing the seller, you get paid by the seller. And when you're representing the buyer, you get paid by the buyer. So he gets the buyer's commission without having to do anything at all. All they have to do is sit in the office, create fake listings, and try to get phone calls from the buyers. That's all they do. So we need to be in the market working with the government, trying to license real estate offices. And fortunately, as of January the 1st, 2025, we have a government app, an official government app, where a property owner has to log into the system, authorize 1, 2, 3, doesn't really matter, as many agents as they want, and then we can only use a portal to put in our listings. So that means all fake listings will disappear. Now, this doesn't give you exclusivity. This only gives you the rights for representation. But at the end of the day, half of the offices will close down, and the other half will be stronger. Yeah.
Just building that minimum barrier there would do so much. Yeah, that's really inspiring that you have something on the books for the beginning of next year. All right, so speaking of the beginning of next year, let's talk about kind of the future of the regulatory aspects of the market here. Jessica, before you talked about the national license data standard and having that on the books. Fast forward 5 years, you're able to put this into effect. What's the impact it's going to have on the market in the U.S.?
Well, I think from the licensing perspective aspect of things, there's a trifecta here. You've got your broker data that is at one point of the triangle, if you will. You've got the licensing data at the other point, and then you've got the MLS subscriber data there. Yeah. And focusing in 5 years, I would love to see it where there's standards for the licensing data, not just the property data. So if there was ever an issue at the licensing point, that point of entry being at the licensing part, if a license is revoked or suspended, then it's turned off at the MLS level and at the broker level for the sake of not just protecting the consumer. There's a safety aspect there as well, but it delays that processing weeks in between if a license is transferred or if something were to happen with that license. So in 5 years, I would see probably more of a standard on the licensing data that talks with the membership data and subscriber data of the MLSs.
Really, really important. And I'm going to put you on the spot here. Yeah. What needs to happen for that to, I know it's a laundry list, but what's kind of at the top of that list to ensure that would happen?
Well, I think at the very top, which is probably my biggest downfall, is patience. That would have to be at the top of the list because it does take patience. But I think rather than looking at it from the angle of what would it take there, let's look at what we have so far. And I think it's very evident and clear even in just this room, but I know it is this way in our industry, is that everybody's heads are facing the same direction. We want this to be a standard. We want there to be that standard that would make it easier for not just licensees and realtors to do their jobs, not just the MLSs to be able to do their jobs, but for the consumer to be protected. I think that's the line that draws everything together.
Great. That's patience is never the easiest thing. Yeah. Albana, so Kosovo can build a market from scratch by incorporating some of the best practices out here, some that we're learning here today. What initiatives are you undertaking that will put Kosovo in a position to have one of the world's more modern real estate regulatory environments?
Yes. As a new country, we identify that this is a time to have a law on valuation, because as a country we don't have that. So lately we created a roadmap so we can scan the situation where we are, what we can do, which is impact of that, and to take the practice from the best countries. So we established the technical group to draft the concept document that regulated the field of valuation. So now that the draft document is finalized, is in the government, and which draft concept document that regulate a lot of fields. For example, we have 150 real estate appraisals in the market, but they can value or appraisal just immovable property. And with that law, we can regulate the field of valuation of assets, valuation of business. We can regulate a profession of appraisals. Also to adapt international standards of valuation in Kosovo. Now we are using Tegova standards. And also, which is more important, is to regulate the field of real estate agency. Real estate agency in Kosovo works without any rules, without any responsibility. Lately, we make also the code of ethics for appraisals and a lot of commission for them to have more accountability. And also, as a government, we finalize a template of report of evaluation. We are building the system of evaluation. The appraisal, we use that report to produce the work there. And also, we like to create one platform, and each appraisal have to put there the reports.
You have a Herculean task in front of you, but in many ways, if you're building this from scratch, you can build a very modern system and not having to have an old system that needs to be modernized. So I don't know if it's easier to go this route, but you know, as we've talked about, there's a lot of technologies out here that can help you with that.
It's a good part because we can learn more, we can go more fast, and also when we are drafting the law, we are drafting in the same way like a directive of Commission European, because they are monitoring us. This is good for us. But sometimes they are very hard to implement in Kosovo. For example, appraisal in Kosovo use Tegova standards, but some of them standards are very, very hard to practice in Kosovo. So after we finalize the law and valuation, as a country, we will adopt standards for our condition.
Great, great. All right, Moath. You touched on your last answer, but the UAE, Abu Dhabi, and the UAE in general, you've touched on the growth, but seeing at some of what the future growth plans are for the region and the country is really incredible. What are you guys doing to kind of ensure that you're ahead of this next wave of consumer protection and consumer transparency?
Yeah, the simple answer is we have to be proactive. Taking that into effect, in year 2000, number of properties, residential dwellings in UAE in general, around 300 to 350K. 2024, you're talking about 300% extra of number of properties. So like a residential, so we're talking about more than a million residential dwelling.
Yeah.
So you see this growth in a matter of 20 years. So that takes us into effect of being proactive. So we have to be ahead of what's coming next. So for the reason we're here today to learn from experts what MLS, what are standards we could put together to take it forward, take into consideration future expansion. Abu Dhabi, Dubai, UAE in general, they're still investing heavily in real estate, and the government, the leaders there are still seeing a lot to come in terms of supply, and that's why we wanted to go over and put the best practices in the market, as well as transparency is something we're not compromising anymore.
Yeah.
We need people to be able to see, read, view their rights, data,
yeah,
to be able to make a decision, whether, and I just said that to many of the colleagues today, more than 60% of our owners in UAE are non-Emirati nationals.
Wow.
Yeah, so you're talking about a market driven by non-UAE nationals. So, and it's all over the world. So we have more than 200 nationalities owning properties in UAE. So our challenge is not about a single type of culture. We have to cover even cultures.
Yeah.
So that's why we're trying as well to measure market sentiments and even consumer sentiments to be able to come up with a solution using data and put double line under that, using data to predict what's coming and fix it before it becomes a problem. And thank you very much. Sorry, I know it's the end of the day, trying to cap. So apologies for talking for so long.
No, it's a great answer. So, Zuto, I'll go over to you and kind of in the spirit of what we talked about previously with this new law going, or this new agency going into effect at the beginning of the year, what do you think as an industry that the Turkish industry needs to do to kind of regain that consumer trust and transparency in the market where it was virtually absent before?
First of all, we won't have corrupted data. That's very important. Because unfortunately, when a buyer or someone who wants to rent a place calls up an office, they won't hear the word, oh, sorry, that doesn't exist anymore. It's all going to be gone now. Everyone will be representing real, actual properties. For us, when we look back, I mean, up until October 2023, you could easily wake up one morning and decide to be a real estate agent or a real estate office owner and start this. Now this won't happen. Now everyone is certified, everyone is licensed. When you work with someone, they will be responsible for all their actions. There will be consequences if you do something wrong.
Yeah.
People will be fined for this. You may have to close your office down. So this is kind of a major turning point for us. Now we need something. We need, everybody is against this, first of all. Like everyone in the market. The listing portals, they hate this because the listing portals, they depend on number of listings they sell. The bigger the packages, the more they sell. Yeah. So they don't want to lose their potential customers. More than half of the offices don't want this. There's a huge pushback to the government saying, just, you know, postpone this, delay this, cancel this, don't do this. Yeah. It's just a bunch of people who are trying to defend that this is what we, and we don't need this for us. We need this for the consumer. We need this for the buyer, for the seller. If this really is in effect by January 1st, 2025, we'll need MLS. We can't keep working with just listing portals.
Yeah.
That doesn't work with us anymore. So all of you MLS suppliers, I'm talking about a country with 85 million people. Okay, if you're interested, come talk to Turkish real estate associations. Come start working with us so we can start doing something together and everything will be more transparent.
Yeah. You know, it's a good point. You got to kind of break through that very first cycle of fighting against it, and then people kind of get used to it and used to it, and then that's what kind of a great breeding ground for what an MLS system would come in once people understand that this is good for everybody.
Because otherwise, it's going to be, again, a listing portal who starts an MLS program over there.
Yeah.
And we don't want that. We don't want to work with these listing portals anymore.
Yeah. All right. Well, this has been a fascinating session here. And like I said, this group here was a really, really important perspective to kind of impart on the audience here because, you know, it's kind of a four-legged stool here. It's the technology aspects, the regulatory aspects, the practice aspects, and then the organizational aspects. And the market and the ecosystem cannot thrive without each of those present in the market. So this information was really good. So let's give our panelists a round of applause, please.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all. Okay. That was the last panel of the day, but I hate to be in front of you guys and the cocktail reception. We have one last thing here. As we've kind of talked about at this event, we've grown this tremendously from last year to this year. Next, what we're going to do here is we're going to invite the representatives up on the stage, and we're going to sign the geographic agreement for the next 2 years of the International MLS Forum. So with that being said, please come on up, and we'll get this going. So as they're setting up, why don't we invite all of the folks on stage. So Sam DeBoard, CEO of RISO, Jan Barufka, president of SEPI, Ali Reza Memar, the inaugural president of the Board of Advisory of the International MLS Forum. That's a mouthful. John D. Michel, CEO of the Toronto Real Estate Board, and Moath Maqbol, the general manager of ADRES. pen to paper. Yeah. Please sign. So to dive into what they're signing specifically, we mentioned it a little bit earlier, but really excited to announce that the 2025 International MLS Forum will be held in Toronto, Canada. And the 2026 International MLS Forum will be held in Abu Dhabi, UAE.